So there was a little bit of fallout, by the way. Very, very little. And I certainly don't want to give a commentary. Here's what I'm speaking of before I bury my lead. Eddie Alvarez versus Dustin Poirier. Eddie Alvarez was in the mount. And Mark Goddard stopped the fight because of an illegal 12-6 elbow. There was some people that had come out, some respectable people within the media, and said how ridiculous that was. And they despised the 12-6 elbow rule. Now, the reason they despise the 12-6 elbow rule is Nevada put that into play early on when Nevada was one of the few states to license MMA. So when other states adopted it, they brought those rules over, thus making the 12-6 banned everywhere. Do you guys know what that is? Remember here, I'm gonna try to illustrate it for people that may not know. Remember when maybe you were a kid and you would drive past a semi truck to the trucker and you would give him the honk sign where you made a fist and you put it straight up in the air and then you pulled it down, and if the trucker saw you, he would honk his horn. Do you guys remember that? That's a 12-6 elbow, meaning your fist is up at a 12. And when you come down with it, your elbow comes down on the 6 if you're looking at a clock. Okay, great. That's a 12-6 elbow. Now, you can do any elbow you want. It just can't be a 12-6. And people hate that rule because it was put in because somebody in the Nevada Commission had seen a karate guy on television break a stack of bricks by raising his arm from the 12-6 position and deemed that to be too devastating of a strike. That was frustrating because it was the same reason when the same commissions that oversee MMA and boxing used to oversee professional wrestling. They thought it was real. So many people in the know were so resentful to this rule because of the stupidity, and that was a very stupid reason, because they saw some karate guy breaking fake bricks that was set up and staged, no more than choreography, on television, and didn't know the difference. That's true. I don't know that speaks to the hazardness of a 12-6 elbow. I don't actually have an opinion. I've never dropped a 12-6 elbow on anybody because it's illegal, and I've never had one dropped on me because it's illegal. I can tell you can generate a lot of power from that position, but largely it comes down into a soft area known as the muscle of your tricep. So I don't actually know. I don't actually tell you that it's a bad rule. I can just tell you the reason that people hate the rule is because of the reasoning of the rule being that some karate master created choreographed brick breaking on television and somebody had seen it and they banned it from the sport. John Jones had made this famous by dropping 12-6 elbows on Matt Hamill, who many people have tried to say that John Jones is an undefeated fighter. That is not true. John Jones has a loss. He lost to Matt Hamill. It was by disqualification. But people in the sport have come out and said, media members, he's never lost and he's undefeated. That isn't true. It's just simply not true. There's a lot of ways to win a fight, and it's not just a knockout, and it's not just a submission. It's not just a decision. You've also got a disqualification. I mean, but that's official within the rules. And you can say, well, there's an asterisk. No, there's not. Not per the rules, there's not. There's 4 ways a contest can be decided, and disqualification sits on the same line as a decision or a knockout or a submission. So people thought, okay, well, that was the day. We should at least change that rule. Well, that's an interesting dialogue, and go ahead and have it. I won't stop you from it. But I will stop you short if you try to deny that the rule has not been changed. It is a very clear rule. You cannot do a 12-6 elbow. The end. The end. That's the whole story. You can't do it. When Eddie did it in the way that it ties in to Mark Goddard, the referee, Eddie dropped this from a full-mounted position, and Kamaru Usman had called out the officiating on social media. The referee, Mark Goddard, went and responded to Kamaru. Now, this creates an interesting conversation, and I do not want to choose a side here or really form an opinion as much to just discuss it openly. So let's back up a little bit. All officials, judges, referees, inspectors, all officials used to be instructed, and I believe they still are. I can confirm for you they used to be, whether it was under Larry Hazzard, Mark Ratner, or president of the ABC, Mike Mazzulli. They are instructed, you do not go and speak publicly into the media. You speak to me. I will make the decision of what is a fair interpretation and what is within the rules, and I may call you on something and want to know how you came to that interpretation, and I will expect to hear from you, and you can defend yourself to me. I will then make the decision on reassigning you, but don't go do it in the public. That's kind of the way it's always been, and it's one of the reasons that you don't hear from referees and inspectors and judges very often unless they go off script. I think that Mark did a very fine job. I would just offer to you one of the reasons that the leaders in Mazzulli, Ratner, Larry Hazzard, one of the reasons that they have that rule is they just understand that a referee's thoughts and interpretations, look, you're skilled at being an inspector, a referee, or a judge. You may not be a skilled speaker. You may not be a skilled arguer. So just don't go make those arguments because you could make yourself look very bad. So instead of stepping in that pool, just stay out of it completely, okay? It's not because they encourage a lack of transparency. They just don't know where the skills of their representatives lie, and they don't want them to go step in it. I'll offer you a fine example. I'm actually on the other side of the Mario Yamasaki as a referee. I thought he was a very good referee that had way more positive check marks in the column than he had negative. Thought he had a very bad night. I thought he should have stopped that fight. Where Mario got in trouble is he came out and spoke on it. And he said, I allowed her to be a warrior. That is when Mario could no longer referee. He openly and publicly and in writing made it very clear why he did not stop the fight, because he was allowing her to be a warrior. His job is purely to interpret the rules, and there is no warrior clause. So now he's letting you know that it's not a matter of his interpretation of the rules. He has just created a rule which you just can't do at any walk of life, right? You don't want judges legislating from the bench, not their job. Same thing goes with the referee. Here's the rules. You enforce them. That's the end of that, whether you like it or not. When referee Goodard came out and he spoke on this, he responded to Usman very politely, called him sir, was very nice. He did everything right. But he said, I brought him up after a third violation. That's where it's the problem, and that's where you encourage him, look, regardless of what you meant, you put it in writing, you shouldn't have done it, you should have stayed out of it. You do not need to defend yourself, except to the person who hired you. That's it. Not from outside critics. Not to Kamaru Usman, not to anybody on Twitter. Only to the executive director who placed you. Because what he said was it was a third violation. He had first grabbed the fence, something along with the ear, and then a 12-6 elbow, and I brought him up, and you're going, look, that's not what the rules say. This is not baseball, and it's third strike, you're out. If Eddie Alvarez is in the most dominant position in all of mixed martial arts, and he breaks a rule from there, you stop it right then. You're saying he broke a rule, he then broke another rule, he then broke a third rule, and you decided to pull him out of this position, and that's where the head scratch comes in. That's where you just go, guys, you do not know an explanation to anybody, a fighter, a public, anyone. You are there and hired. You work for someone else. That's who assigned you and who wrote your check that night. Answer to him. It's not different than any other job. There is a hierarchy and a tier system, and you answer to them. And I also thought it was very interesting because I do know that those officials are told not to speak. And every now and then you'll see some of them come out and do it. And I do wonder how. Did they receive permission to come out and speak? Because if they did, now you've created a tier system. Now you're saying some officials are either good enough, long-standing enough, intelligent enough to come out and do it while others aren't? Or you're saying some commissions law? I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I had this talk with Ariel Hawana today on Ariel and the Bad Guy. And Ariel said, hey, I'm all for it. I love the transparency. More of it. Yeah, be careful with that. Be careful with that. Words matter. People will tell you got a freedom of speech within this country. I don't know if there's any constitutional act that is more misunderstood than a freedom of speech. I really don't know about that. You come out and words matter, and you will be bound to your words. And if you're saying, I was letting him be a warrior when that's not in the rules, or when you say I saw 2 other infractions that I let go and only decided to take action when I saw a 3rd one, that's baseball. Only in baseball is it 3 strikes and you're out. So I just think that there could be an interesting dialogue there, which would come back to Mazzulli, Hazard, and Ratner's rule of just don't step in it. Just don't go out there. Let it go. Answer to me. I'll answer to them. That's the hierarchy. Okay. Seems to make sense. Seems to make maybe a little bit more sense, in my opinion. Because it's tough in MMA, right? There's not very many rules in our sport. There's just not. So the rules that you have, it's very important that those are followed. There seems to be some kind of a narrative that says the first foul is a warning. I don't know if that's true. I couldn't offer for you that it's not. I haven't actually looked that up in the rule book. I just know that seems to be the way that it's played out. That seems a little bit rough to me when there's only a handful of rules to start with. Why does a guy get a warning? That was just confusing. It seems like it should be a point. It could be greater than that. There could be disqualifications given. I don't know that I've ever seen a referee with the balls to disqualify a guy on his first offense. And it would be just that. It would not be wrong. It would not be show ruining. It would not be career suicide. It would be a referee doing his job. If there was an extreme violation and the referee stepped in and said, I don't need 5 minutes to give to the other guy. I don't care what his opinion is. I just saw him take a 12-6 elbow, which a governing body known as the Nevada State Athletic Commission and adopted by 38 other states within the country say is absolutely illegal. As a matter of fact, officially on the record, they have ruled that it could break a stack of bricks. Whether you find that ridiculous or not, that is what the government has ruled. You do not ask the other guy to take a few minutes and let you know if he continue. You step in there like a man and say, this is over. I'm making the decision. I don't need your opinion. You're not in a position to give an opinion. I am in an authoritative position. I am not exhausted. I am not hurt. And I have not just had an elbow dropped on me by 38 different states that is regulated. It is so dangerous, it could break a stack of bricks. You step in there and make the call. You were violated and this contest is over. That is how any other sport would do it. I do not offer to you, and I do not want resistance from you guys coming to me and telling me how ridiculous the rule is. I am on the same page as you that it's ridiculous. It was still ruled by a government agency and adopted by 38 others. So for a referee to see this devastatingly illegal brick-breaking strike